Hi, lovely people. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. So, we are going to be learning how to draft, cut, and sew a princess bustier. And these are the required measurements. So, let us start with the front pattern. And the first thing we are going to be doing is to rule out the starting line on the front pattern. This measure is just done for us to have a straight line. Then after, I'll divide my shoulder measurement by 2 and I'll input it and I'll add half-inch sewing allowance to it. From that point, I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll input my neck width, which is 4 inches, and I will use my straight ruler to connect it to the shoulder slant. For the neck depth, I'm going to be making use of 5 inches, and I'll also use my hip cuff to connect it to the neck width point. This is not a basic neckline. Depending on the kind of neck design you want to make, just input a neckline you want. So now I'll calculate my bust measurement divided by 6 and I'll add 1.5 inches so I can get my armhole length. Then I'll rule a straight line. Then afterwards, I'll divide the armhole length by 2, and from that point, I'll come inside by 1 inch. Using my straight ruler, I'll connect it like so. Then to get the armhole curve, I'm going to divide my bust divided by 4. I'll try to rule a straight line to connect it to the point where I got it, and using my curve ruler, I'll connect like so. So we've gotten our armhole curve for the front pattern. Then afterwards, I'll input my vertical measurements, which are the bust point, the under bust point, and also the half length or the waistline. So I'm going to input them and I will try to rule a straight line like so. I'll label it my bust point, my under bust, and my waistline. Waistline is also half length, so whatever you call it, I chose to label it that way. Then afterwards, I will divide my bust span into two. That's the nipple to nipple measurement, and I will input half of it from the center of the front. Then I'll connect like so. So now for the bustier dart intake, I'll make use of 2.5 inches because I'm working with someone who is busty. But for a smaller bust size, I'll make use of 2 inches dart intake. And if it's for a very big bust, 3 inches is okay. So, but I'm making use of 2.5 inches like I'm doing here. Then I'll come down by 1 inch on my bust point. Then using my hip curve, I am going to connect to those points. Also, when you are trying to contour your under bust, because what we're actually doing here is contouring of the under bust, you make sure that the smaller part of the inch you are making use of, whether 2 inches, 3 inches, or 2.5 inches, smaller part comes to this side, while the remaining larger part goes to the other side. For example, in this video, I made use of 1 inches for this side and the remaining 1.5 on the other side. And now for us to get our princess dart, we need to divide the armhole by 2. So you're going to measure all the armhole, like the total of the armhole curve. Then you divide it by 2. Afterwards, you come up from the bust point with 1 inch. And using your hip curve like the way I am doing, you connect from that point to the armhole. And after that, we're also going to take the dart intake around that side. And in doing so, I am going to make use of 1.5 inches. I'll divide it by 2 and I will share it on both sides, 0.75 on both sides. Using my hip cover, I'm going to connect like the way I'm doing in the video. So the dart intake we took, now we have to return it to this part of the princess bustier. So I am going to return the 1.5 inch and I'm also going to create a new armhole. If you don't do this, you have shortage around the armhole area. So I am trying to create a new armhole. I returned that same 1.5 inches on the armhole side and I connected like so using my hip curve. And after that, we are going to be taking our body measurement. So I divided my bust by 4 and I imputed it. And I also added the sewing allowance at once. Like so, if you don't want to add yours, you can just impute your body measurements and mark. Then also on the waist area, I also checked for my round waist measurement. I divided it by 4 and I imputed it. So whatever I'm using for my round waist is the same thing I'm using for my under bust. And also the dart intake we took for the contouring, you have to return it back. So that's what I'm doing here. I returned the dart intake back and I also imputed my sewing allowance at once and I rule a straight line like so. So now let us cut. So please check through the lines the way I am cutting it. So please try to study before you cut your lines. So the front pattern for our princess that bustier is ready, as you can see, and you see how beautiful it is. Even when it is arranged, it aligns well. So except if you have a specific design you want to make, this center should be cut on fold. Like when you are transferring to the fabric, you fold the fabric. So now let us cut the back pattern. And as you can see, I have ruled the starting line already. And the first thing I'm going to be marking out is our zipper allowance. So this will stand as a temporary zipper allowance because we are going to be contouring the back zipper. I made use of 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance. Then now I will input my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'll add ½ inch sewing allowance to it. From that point, I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. And I'll also input my neck width of 4 inches, and I will slant it straight into the shoulder slope. I will input my neck depth of 2 inches. This is just a basic neckline. Whatever the design of neckline you wish to make, you can input it. Then afterwards, I will input the armhole length I made use of in the front. So whatever armhole length you made use of, you will input it for your back also. Then to get a straight line, I'll try to re-input the back measurement, and I will rule the armhole length as you can see. Now to get our armhole curve, I will divide my bust divided by 4, and I will mark it out and rule like so. For the armhole curve, I'll come out by 1 inch. Then I'll use my hip curve to connect like so. So our back armhole curve is ready. So for the chest line, our chest line automatically is where the armhole length stops. So I'll rule a straight line like I'm doing in this video, and I'll label it the chest line. Now the next thing for us to do is to input the length of our clothes. So the half length I'm working with is 18 inches, and I'm going to input it, and I will also try to connect the necessary lines like I am doing. I had to extend the zipper line, and I'll rule it out like this. Then I'll label it my waistline or my half length. Now the next thing for us to do is to contour our back zipper. So we have 0.5 inch, 0.75 inch, and 1 inch. So you can use any between the three, but I'm making use of 1 inch here, as you can see. Then I'll just really straight as far as my ruler can take. Remember, our back is not straight. It's not just on the waist area alone. Our back is not straight too, from the center area and all. So now I'm trying to re-input a new zipper line. Like using that new line that I contour the back zipper, I will start marking 1.5 inches like so. So now our zipper allowance is not more straight, but it is slanty, and I will label it the zipper allowance. So from that new line, I am going to input my nipple to nipple measurement to get the dart intake, and I will input it. But because we need to get a straight line, I am going to measure the overall line from that former long line we have, just for us to get a straight line for our dart intake. Then I'll input it and rule a line. I'll mark ½ inch on both sides for my dart intake. Then I will connect like so. Now, for us to get our princess dart, you have to measure the overall measurement you get from your armhole curve. Then you divide it by 2. So from that point you divide by 2, you can come up by 1 inch or 1.5 inches. Reason why we do this is because our back princess dart needs to come up. It gives fuller shape to the back, unlike you just picking it from that point where you divide it by 2. So after that, I will use my hip cuff to connect it. Then now, starting from that new line where our zipper bulge was taken, I will input the bust measurement divided by 4, and I will mark, and I will also add my sewing allowance at once. I also do the same thing at the waistline. I will input my round waist divided by 4. I'll return the dart leg, and I'll also add my sewing allowance at once. Then I'll connect. So our back princess dart is ready. Then now I will cut. So our princess dart for the back pattern is ready and it looks beautiful. So this is how it looks like cutting a princess bustier for the front and the back. Now let's move on to sewing, but I'll be majorly illustrating with the front pattern. So I've added half-inch sewing allowance only to the part whereby the dart intake was taken. Now for the padding, like adding wording to the princess bustier, I am going to be coming down by 1.5 inch from the upper part of the bustier and I'll rule a straight line. Then on the side, I am going to be coming in by 4.5 inches. Then I'll use my hand to free hand to sketch a round semicircle like that. Also from the neckline, I'll come down by 0.75 or 1 inch. Reason why we always do this coming down is so that the wording won't go into the seam allowance, it won't bulge out. Then the under bust is like the stopping area for the bustier. So that's where the cup should stop at, and that is what I mark on the lower part. As you can see, I have placed the bustier on my wording. I am making use of a medium size soft wording, and now I'm going to cut. As you can see, also I forgot to say this earlier, the wording was on fold. Remember, if you are transferring your center pattern, it has to be on fold. So I folded this wording into two before I started cutting. So now I have traced it out, and I'm also using my marker to trace out like so and cut. Also, one more thing is that I intentionally use this paper as an illustration. Reason being that had it been I use the fabric I have transferred as an illustration, I will also cut out the sewing allowance with it. And the right way for cutting out your wording is it shouldn't go into the sewing allowance, so that the sewing allowance will be well relaxed. You are going to see what I am trying to explain. So now with the way I am marking it, if you remember, the fabric I've already added my half-inch sewing allowance already, but this wording does not have that half-inch sewing allowance. So I'm also trying to transfer the side of the princess bustier on the wording, and I'm cutting for two. So now look at the way I am going to arrange my wording. I am going to be placing it in a way that it is not going to be going into the seam allowance on the side and also on the neckline area. Also, after I've placed it, I try to use my iron to iron it. But this is also a sewing tip. If you iron from that side, it will take time before your wording gums to the fabric. But you have to place your iron on the other side of the wording, because that is where the gum is. The gum that we attach to the clothes. In few seconds before you know it, it will attach and it will gum. So now I'm also going to be arranging the wording on the side of the fabric. As you can see, I first arranged it like so, then I now moved back using my half-inch sewing allowance as a guide. So this way, the wording won't come into the way of the sewing allowance when I'm sewing. You know, when you attach two wording together, it will make it to be very thick, and there might be this inconvenience when you are trying to sew, and it will be too thick for the machine mouth. So this is what I do, and it works well for me. It also helps the seam allowance to relax well. So this is what it looks like after ironing the wording to the fabric. Now the next thing for us to do is to sew the princess bustier together, and I'm going to be picking one part of the fabric and one part of the side bustier and the center of the fabric together, and I will pin like so. So while you are pinning, you need to be patient with your pinning, and you need to take your time to arrange them together. The reason why we pin is to make our work easier and neater, so you won't need to struggle with your fabric when you are sewing. So as you can see, I am taking my time to arrange the bustier together, and I will pin. Also, when you are trying to arrange your bustier, you need to arrange it from the down part. You don't arrange bustier from the upper part. So after that, I am going to go and sew from the down part like so, and I'll take my time to join together using half-inch sewing allowance. Now I have gone ahead to sew it, and I will need to notch. I will need to open the seam, and you need to take your time to notch. Please, when notching, you have to be careful so as not to cut through the seam allowance. So I am going to take my time to notch pointy parts so that it will make the curvy part easy to open up. You can see how beautiful it is looking even when I've not even ironed it yet. And I'm going to repeat same process with this second part. So here is the result. I've not even ironed it, and you can see the way the wording is looking so beautiful, and it is sitting pretty also. Now we are going to be ironing our bustier. So now we are going to be pressing our bustier, and I'm going to be making use of this bust arm. And I have a tutorial video on how to make it with scraps of things you have around you. And I'm going to drop a link for that. I'm going to be using my iron and the water. So if you have a steam press iron, you just need to pump in water while ironing. So I'm going to be using this fabric to cover the seam allowance so as not to get stained. I'll be opening the seam and I'll be ironing it using my bust arm as a aid. So when you are ironing, you have to take your time to place the iron. It's not something you have to be in a hurry for. It is better you just take your time to do it and get a beautiful result. So using my bust arm as a guide to iron curvy parts, contoured parts of the bustier, I am going to be taking my time to open the seam, pump in water and iron like so. So you keep opening the seam as I am doing in the video. You try to open it bit by bit and you pump in your water or use your steam press iron to pump in water and you iron. When you do this, it will help the seam to relax well, and it will also help your cup to come out beautifully well. So after doing this, I am going to try to repeat the same process on the second side of my bustier off camera. And here is the end result. You can see how beautiful the bustier came out. And when you draft your pattern well, you sew it in the right way, and you also iron it well, you are going to get a beautiful result. So here is how to draft, cut and sew a princess bustier. Thank you so much for watching my video. See you in my next one. Love you. Bye.